What is up, everybody? This is Lyle, No Hippie Trucking and Transportation. Still coming at you from the TA in Paulsboro, New Jersey. Had a chance to talk to somebody on the phone yesterday, newer driver, asking about what I keep on the truck in the winter, things like that. So we had a conversation, what I keep on my truck, yada, yada, yada. Then he asked me, what's the hardest thing about driving in winter? And I kind of flipped that question around as to what is the scariest thing about driving in winter. And I'm not talking about all winter, because winter is a season, but it's not going to be snowing everywhere. Last year was aberration. Last year was bad almost everywhere, so really couldn't escape it. But the scariest thing about driving in winter is other drivers, truck drivers, not cars, other truck drivers. That's the scariest thing about driving in winter. Now, some of those truck drivers are driving in a manner that I would consider to be reckless. And then somebody could say, well, maybe they're just driving faster because they have a higher skill level. Well, I'm saying reckless because some of these drivers I identified as reckless ended up in a ditch somewhere, and not always alone. So some of those drivers were reckless, and then some of them weren't necessarily being reckless, but they might have been driving a faster speed. A good example, I'm driving down I-80 in Nebraska, about to shut down at this York TA. I got to go about 50 miles to get there, so along that 50-mile drive, there weren't that many trucks on the road, but the couple that were out there that were going faster than me, they would pass me, and they would be going maybe 2 or 3 miles an hour faster, and it would kick up a lot of snow, and I couldn't really see, things like that. Luckily, I could follow the GPS on my dash, a little bit more accurate than the Qualcomm and the Garmin I got, but that makes it hard. So that was a case of not necessarily being reckless, but putting me in a bad situation. I think near the end I might have kicked up my speed a little bit more just to keep a little bit more distance, or lessen the amount of trucks that would pass me up. But that's a good example of not necessarily being reckless. Another good example of not being reckless, maybe overly cautious, maybe a new driver, erratic speed changes going into corners or hills, things like that. Like, you could have a bunch of distance between you and a truck, but if you're coming down a hill and then there's just a super drastic change, sometimes that could affect you as a driver as well. So best thing to do is identify a driver like that as soon as you can, and even back off like twice as much. Maybe even leave a half a mile, 3/4 of a mile between you and that truck. But ways that drivers are reckless, I-80 is probably the perfect example of this. And I-80 in Wyoming is probably the perfect example of this. A lot of times you'll see drivers out there, it'll be, you name how bad it is, and there's drivers out there still doing 65, 70. The last one I can remember out there, and there's a few I can remember, it was snowing and it was kind of icy. Wyoming has a lot of shade, so it was still ice left over that hadn't quite had the chance of getting melted off yet. And I was in like a line of trucks, probably about 15 trucks that were all just being reasonable, driving our 55, whatever. And you just see trucks just blowing by. And I remember seeing a CR England truck blow by us. And there was a guy in the CB that was like laughing about, we're going to be seeing him in the ditch here pretty soon. And about 4 minutes later, I don't know what happened, but the CR England truck was in a ditch, and then there was another truck that was in a ditch. So I don't know how that happened, but one of the scariest things to me that really makes me apprehensive, primarily on 80, but it could be anywhere where the road conditions are bad, is trucks passing you up. you know, because a lot of times when you see them passing you, that trailers, you could tell the trailer's not getting all that traction, and you know, you're just worried about them jackknifing like right in front of you. So that is something that's scary. And then somebody could say, well, you know what? Just because they're driving faster doesn't mean they're reckless. Maybe they just have more experience. You know, I'm just talking about moments when the trucks have actually gone into ditches and stuff like that. And I don't really think it's an experience thing. If you look at I-80 and look at I-90, I-90 gets a fraction of the accidents as I-80, and the reason is there's more damn truck drivers on I-80 than on I-90. I've never felt really apprehensive about driving on I-90 because of what other truck drivers are going to do. On I-80, I'm constantly thinking about what other trucks are doing out there. I mean, every now and then, and you know, one of the reasons I've kind of said, you know what, I'm really not trying to drive across I-80 in the winter, but you know, sometimes if you get with a good group of trucks out there, call it a convoy, call it whatever you want, but let's just say you get with the group of responsible drivers, it can make that journey a lot more pleasant. You know, like I said, one of the times I was there, I was in a line of trucks. It might have been 15 trucks that were all doing like 55, whatever, and it was bad weather conditions, but it was a nice ride because nobody was out there. I mean, you did have trucks that were passing a lot of the trucks, but a lot of trucks that would normally think about passing weren't trying to pass, since there were so many of us that were doing the same speed. Just overtaking all those trucks was going to be a little bit much. So that's rare, but that was one of the best times of driving through I-80 in clement weather. But there's really not much you could do about it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like they say, you know, you can shut down, but listen, if you're watching a safety meeting and you're at any company and they say shut down, you know, it's not that easy. It's not as easy as shutting down. You know, you could have somebody that's in your safety department that was a truck driver in the 1980s or 1990s. Well, they might have had better parking back then. I don't know, but you got to think about shutting down long before it's time to shut down these days. You know what I'm saying? So I know this isn't on topic, but you got to be looking at what the weather's like going into where you're going, and shutting down before that becomes a problem. If you have time on the load, use your clock to flip your schedule. We're getting all off topic now. You know, one of the things about driving in winter, I make fun of being a solar powered trucker, but in the winter time, I will definitely try to stay on days if I'm in one of those areas, like if I'm in Wyoming, Nebraska, you know, Ohio, Indiana, anywhere that could be slick, icy, maybe snow. I might try to flip my schedule to run days during that time. So if you happen to be new and you're worried about driving in the wintertime and you think it's just about driving the truck, it's more than just driving the truck. Learning your logs is going to allow you to have more control over when you drive. If you don't understand, if you just think this job is all about driving and your clock starts and your clock ends, and you look at it like that, you're going to be driving in a lot of conditions maybe that you don't want to drive in, or driving during times that you want to drive, you don't want to drive in. So I know that's a little bit off topic, but yeah, there's nothing you can do about it. You know, sometimes you can shut down, but then you got to find a place to shut down. So getting back to the point, the scariest thing to me about driving in winter is other truck drivers. If you really think about it, look at how cars are driving in the wintertime. They're really not driving as crazy as they are in the summer, so they're usually kind of pretty tame. You know, another tip, I did do a video on this a while back, since we're talking about winter. Check out the indigenous population where you're driving. I remember driving through Wisconsin. I picked up a load in Appleton, Wisconsin. I don't know where it was going, but I had to go from Wisconsin. I was driving through there coming into Chicago, and I'm driving what I think is a pretty safe speed, but I'm like looking at all these cars and they're going a little bit slower than me, and that was like my first sign that, you know what, maybe it might be time to back it down a little bit. So take notice of how people are driving around you, especially in areas like Chicago where you have a lot of local drivers, things like that. If you start seeing what you might identify as local drivers being like super cautious, take that as a hint. Other drivers, take that as a hint. Because sometimes you don't really know. I mean, sometimes I want to just stop the truck on the side of the road and get out and feel the pavement just to see how slick it is. Because sometimes it doesn't look slick. I mean, it might be slick, but you don't know because it's just shiny. You don't know if it's kind of wet or if it's slick. And, you know, I mean, sometimes it's dry. You know, you can't really see the spray coming off tires depending, you know. So, I mean, I know I went all off on that one, but yeah, look at how people are driving around you. I might do that one time this year, you know, hit an off ramp, see how slick the ground is, because sometimes I'm just questioning, how slick is it out there? You know what I'm saying? You just don't know sometimes until you know. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. Not much you could do about it. Just be as prepared as you can. What I'll often do, if I'm going into an area that there might be snow or I'm in a bad area, is I might pick out about 4 or 5 different stopping points along the way. You know, if the traffic gets bad here, here's a place to pull over. Okay, if I make it past this, here's the next place to pull over. But always kind of have a plan. And as a new driver, you may not know the landscape of truck stops or general places where you could park or places in the cut out here until you've been driving. So maybe when you start your drive shift, get on Trucker Path, see kind of what's out there. Okay, here's like 5 places to stop in the next 150 miles. And then, you know, if you make it past that, you know, or need to go past that, all right, well, here's some more places. And then if it starts getting bad, you already have places. All right, I know exit 232. Boom, that's the place I can pull over. So, be proactive. I mean, I guess sometimes sometimes winter driving is not that bad at night if there's nobody else on the road, which happens a lot. If you're out there by yourself, you know, then you don't have to be dealing with as much traffic. But then again, road conditions could be, you know, you could be dealing with worse road conditions. Now, I don't know what's worse, bad road conditions or better road conditions with irresponsible drivers everywhere. So pick your poison on that one. Anyway, I'm a rookie driver. I've only really, I mean, I come from Colorado. I'm all about that winter driving. But, you know, this is just going to be my 3rd winter. Last winter was probably enough for 2 different winters. As bad as that was, you know, if you're coming into winter, it's really not that much to be scared about. It's a lot to think about. You know, you just can't be driving around, you know, with the same, you have to be thinking about it, I guess is what I'm saying. I know I'm all off topic, rambling about some other shit, but, you know, the way I think about it is enjoy the summer, survive the winter. And maybe that was just because last winter, I cannot see a winter being as bad as it was last winter. So if you escaped last winter unscathed, this winter should not be that bad. Or if you weren't in trucking and you might have heard about last winter, I cannot see this winter being as bad as it was last year. And I don't know why I got all off topic on that. But since we're talking winter driving, you know, maybe just think about what time, things to think about if you're new and you're not out here, especially primarily in Pennsylvania. You need to be checking to see if they have any empty trailer bans or something like that in effect. That might determine, you know, when or if you can even pick up that next load. But you know what? I'm going to end this video. I'm rambling all off topic about what I was supposed to be talking about, which is what scares me most about driving in the winter, and other drivers scare me most about driving in winter. That's all I gotta say. Thanks for stopping by No Hippie Trucking and Transportation. I appreciate it. Comment, subscribe, and I'm out.